Yoritomo was putting together piece by piece what would soon, in 1192, become the Kamakura Bakufu. This was a long-term process that had many steps. In 1182, just after the start of his rebellion, he married into the Hojo clan. He married Hojo Masako. This was a brilliant move. The Hojo were actually supposed to be his jailers. They were a minor local branch of the Taira who were tasked with looking after this annoying kid. Not necessarily because of any personal qualities that made him annoying, but because just by being alive, he needed to be watched. So Kiyomori told the Hojo to watch him. The Hojo said, yes, sir. And then in 1180, when Prince Mochihito issued his call to the Minamoto to rebel, the Hojo said, yep, absolutely, we're in too. The Taira were not very popular over the Taira in Kyoto were not very popular in local areas. They really did gravitate to the capital. That's certainly where the power was. That's where their influence was. And people out in the countryside had started to look at them as if they really were being corrupted by the capital, as if they were becoming effeminate, as if they were just becoming weak and decadent. All of the things that the Heike Monogatari hints at, while also praising them for still being great warriors. But the Hojo were symptomatic of the fact that the Taira really couldn't control their retainers very effectively. And so Yoritomo marries into this family, starts winning victories, and in 1185, Battle of Dannoura, the head Taira family is destroyed. They're annihilated. So Yoritomo restores order. Japan had been going through a period of intermittent civil war, and for about half a century now. And there were local disturbances, there was banditry, there was disruption of trade. Not that Japan had a great deal of trade at this point, but there was certainly some. Aristocrats and often samurai could not get produce from estates that they either owned or managed, and this was seen as a problem. But once the Taira are defeated, Yoritomo sets to establishing order. And he is more or less successful at doing this. He also mops up opposition. If I can backtrack to the map for a second, he campaigns against the Fujiwara base in extreme northeastern Japan in Tohoku. That Tohoku is the name for eastern, northeastern Japan. I will sometimes use that. So Yoritomo beats them up quite effectively, and the Fujiwara are still around. They are a family that is still in Kyoto. They have a lot of influence there. They usually still serve as regents to the emperor, but they no longer have the independent power necessary to threaten the Minamoto in the same way that, for example, the Taira did. Or used to have before Yoritomo took care of them. So that problem has also been solved. Yoritomo, that is, also confirms the land rights of people who supported him, basically, and hands out estates confiscated from Taira or Taira supporters to his supporters, so he keeps his samurai very happy. They get plenty of rewards, and initially, anyway. And in 1192, he does something very interesting. He arranges it so that the emperor appoints him Sei Taishogun, that is to say, the great barbarian subduing generalissimo. This is a military rank for sure. This is also a rank that did exist in the bureaucracy of the imperial government. but it was not particularly prestigious. It was a kind of a mid-level honor, but Yoritomo wasn't interested in basing his power off of his court rank or anything like that, although those things certainly did help, and he certainly kept his court rank kept rising. Instead, he centers his identity and the identity of his new government on his nature as a samurai, on his nature as a warrior. The great barbarian subduing generalism, I mean, the samurai by this point really didn't engage in very much fighting with the emishi. The emishi were being assimilated into Japanese society more and more quickly, and this was basically a statement that I am the top dog, I am the top warrior. And Yoritomo's government, in many ways, becomes a government of warriors for warriors, in ways that we shall explore. And then in 1199, Yoritomo dies. And Yoritomo's actions during the early years of his dynasty would really affect that dynasty until its later collapse, until its eventual collapse. He set up a situation where his in-laws essentially gained control of the government. He was a very suspicious man, Yoritomo was. He didn't trust anybody. A chance remark could damn a relative of his to death. We know this from his brother Noriyori. There was an incident during a hunt, and in 1193, and Noriyori said to Hojo Masako, to Yoritomo's wife, you know, if Yoritomo dies, I'll still take care of the family. There was a rumor that Yoritomo had been killed during a hunt. It wasn't true, but Yoritomo heard this and he's like, well, I don't trust my brother now. Had him killed. And certainly your reading for this week from the Yoshitsune talks quite a lot about Yoritomo's relationship with his youngest brother as well. So please keep that in mind when we're going to be talking about, well, basically everything else that's on this slide. He very quickly, his line dies out. He has two sons. They both die by 1219, and that's it. His line is defunct. The direct Minamoto lineage is defunct. So what happens is the in-laws have a plan. The in-laws had been in control, the Hojo have been in control of the government since 1203 as regents. Hojo Masako was very sharp, and she managed, despite being a woman in this very patriarchal society, although in some ways because she was a woman, she used her family very well, had access to them that male relatives may not necessarily have. But anyway, it was reasons of prestige. In any case, she knew how to use people very well, and her father did as well. And by 1203, they had basically become the power in the land. Until 1219, there were technically descendants of Yoritomo around, but really the Hojo were in control, and what they did was, when the line died out, they just said no problem. They adopted an aristocrat, and they just made him a Minamoto through adoption, and they then continued to exercise real political power as regents over this basically outsider who was brought into this government and had no base of support, who was only Minamoto in name. And essentially what had happened is the Hojo had also replicated the a pattern that dates back all the way to the Fujiwara, where it's the regent that really rules, despite the actual ruler gaining his authority through descent. That was really something they didn't had no patience for. Let's put it that way. And the Hojo then instituted a broad pattern of reforms. There was the institutionalization of vassalage. These relationships, which had certainly been around before the Hojo and their control of the government through puppets, warriors had always served with successful warriors to whom they gave their obedience in exchange for expectation of rewards. What the Hojo do is they actually codify this into law. You now start to get a legal codification of these feudal relationships of vassal and lord, which had before been very, very situational. And certainly through the Yoshitsune, you'll see that betrayal was certainly not unknown in this society, and it was seen as dishonorable, but it was also seen as something that happened all the time. These laws now spelled out what happens if a vassal should betray a lord.